In the spirit of Record Store Day approaching and the list being released 2 weeks ago, we're going to talk about some of our favorite records in our collections.
We're gonna go through our top 10 records that we physically own in our record collections. 5 for me, 5 for him. This is in regards to how much we like the record itself, where we got it from, if it's sentimental in any way, the rarity, just everything that comes together and to make these our favorite albums that we own.
My number 5 is Versus by Pearl Jam. This was my very first record on vinyl, and it's also my favorite Pearl Jam record of all time. I remember when I first picked up this record, I was so excited about all the vinyl I'd be getting in the future, and it really just made me stoked to start my collection. This album has some of my favorite Pearl Jam tracks ever, like Animal and Glorified G. To me, this album just sounds so much better on vinyl, even though it sounds amazing in other forms too. I also really enjoy the artwork of the album. I really love this panoramic photo that Pearl Jam included. It just really gives it that old-timey vibe. And this album just brings back so much nostalgia for me. Number 4 for me is Mac DeMarco's Old Dog Demos. This was a Record Store Day exclusive at last year's Record Store Day, and getting this on vinyl actually made me realize I like the demos more than the actual album itself. I think the stripped back versions of all the songs that were on this Old Dog sound actually better than the versions that are on the album itself. Mac included a lot of weird electronic stuff on that album, and I just enjoy the stripped back acoustic sounds of the demos. I stood in line pretty early in the morning to get this album, so there's definitely a good memory of going out early on a Record Store Day, enjoying the morning, and getting an album that you were wanting. My number 3 is Tune In Tokyo by Green Day. This record was a Record Store Day exclusive, I think 3 or 4 years ago. As you can see, it has the little Record Store Day exclusive sticker on the side here. This is a live recording album from Green Day's tour in Tokyo, obviously, Tokyo, Japan. And this album includes a lot of tracks from their Warning, or if not Warning, yeah it is Warning. Warning, and also one track from Insomniac. It's not Insomniac, it's Nimrod. Despite a lot of people's opinions, I actually really enjoy their album Warning. It's one of my favorite Green Day albums. And I was really stoked to find this album as I really enjoy their live stuff, as well as their live stuff in Tokyo specifically. They always have really good shows there. Number 2 is Wolf Alice, My Love Is Cool. This is a really interesting British rock band that has a really amazing sound, and listening to them really got me inspired to listen to a lot of other rock music. At the time that I discovered Wolf Alice, I was getting pretty disappointed with the rock genre, and they just made me realize that there's still a lot of good stuff out there. I was also very surprised to find this vinyl in the record store, as they're a pretty small band in North America. They're pretty huge in Britain, but I just didn't expect to find one of their vinyls here in Calgary. Also, Connor really wanted this album, and I found it before him in the record store, so I bought it, and f*** him. For me, my number 1 is Pentagram, Relentless. This was my very first picture disc, and the very first album that I found that I was very excited about finding, because I thought it was something really unique and special. Pentagram is a doom metal band, and this was one of their very first albums, and to me, it's my favorite album in their entire discography. The actual vinyl for this album is really cool. You got white on black Pentagram on the front, and then you have a black on white Pentagram on the other side. This also was not an easy vinyl to find. I went to quite a few record stores and nobody had it, let alone knew what I was talking about in a lot of cases. Eventually I found it hiding at the back of a stack of other vinyls, and I was so excited that I actually had finally found it. I think this is one of the best bands in the doom metal genre, and this album really brings a lot of emotion and a lot of raw, stripped back sounds. I love this album. You better put that burp in there. I'd say my 2 favorite tracks on this record are The Ghoul and Sinister.
My number 5 is Waco by Violent Soho. This is one of my favorite bands of all time, and nobody outside of Australia has a clue who they are. So if you're into hard rock, grunge, punk, you're gonna love this band. Also, interesting story about this vinyl in particular. I ordered it from the record label's website and received it in the mail like usual, but 2 weeks later, I got another copy of it for free, randomly sent to me. Now, I didn't want to take money away from an indie label, so I did email them and I said, you guys ship me 2 of the same album. And luckily, they actually let me keep it. So now I have 1 sealed copy and 1 open copy that I listen to. It's got a red vinyl on the inside, but unfortunately, this is my unopened copy, so I can't show it to you. But I highly urge you, check out this band, Violent Soho. This is 2 by Fiddlar. This is their second album by the California punk band Fiddlar. Damn, is this a great album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I'm just obsessed with this album. I listen to it so much that nowadays I'm actually sick of it because I heard it so many times, but I loved it when it first came out. And the reason why this record in particular is so special is because it's really hard to find this album in stores. I've only ever seen it once, and that was the time I bought it. It was shoved in a random bin at the back, and it was the only one there, and I had to buy it right away. I was also pleasantly surprised that it came on orange vinyl, which they actually didn't indicate on the packaging. And it looks like a clock when it's spinning on the record player. Do you know what time it is? Number 3 is another Fiddlar record. This is their first album. And I got it for Record Store Day last year on the picture disc, as you can tell. I also love this album. I'm actually one of the few people that prefers their second album that I just showed you earlier to the first, but I still love this one as well. I don't usually buy picture discs because they don't sound quite as good as regular vinyl, but this one's really cool looking, so I bought it. Also, Jacob wanted it too, and I found it first, so I bought it.
I literally told him as we were going into the record store that that's the vinyl I wanted, and he hid that he found it for me until he had already purchased it. Like a fucking prick.
Number 2 is Higher Truth by Chris Cornell.
Won't you take one link from this?
Now Chris has a lot of music out. This isn't one of my favorite albums of his. I do absolutely love it, but he of course has way more albums that I love that I have on vinyl as well. But I did buy this album at his solo show that I was at. He came to Calgary, I went there, bought this record. So this album is very sentimental. As most of you probably know, Chris Cornell actually died a little bit less than a year after this album came out and after that show. So this is super sentimental to me because I was very lucky to be able to see him live before he passed away, and also because this album itself was actually in the presence of Jesus, otherwise known as Chris Cornell. Although I will admit, I was so sad about his passing that I actually have not listened to this since it happened because it's just too upsetting. And my number 1, which I actually have framed, is Songs from the Laundry Room by the Foo Fighters. I have this album up on my wall, protected in this $10 frame, so no one steals it or damages it. This album includes 4 demos that Dave Grohl wrote right before the Foo Fighters actually began as a band. That's Alone and Easy Target, Big Me, as well as a cover of the song Kids in America, and a song that was never heard before, Empty Handed. I know a lot of Foo Fighters fans were unlucky and weren't able to find a copy, so I was really thankful that I found one, and I know this one's going to be shooting up in value, so that's why I have it protected. The only downside of having it in a frame though is I can't listen to it, so that kind of sucks. So those are our top 10 vinyl records. Let us know in the comments about your most valuable vinyl record, or cassette or CD, or any piece of music memorabilia that you have. I want to hear what cool stuff you guys own. And we'll also check back in and show you what we find this year at Record Store Day. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.
This is Oprah Winfrey. Subscribes no responsibilities. Right the f*** now.